Hi guys, it's Marissa. Welcome to tonight's What's New Art Chat. This is my 10th What's New Art Chat, and I welcome you all tonight. It's been 10 weeks every Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, and I've been blessed with friends who have come along and shared the evening with me, and it is just so much fun getting to know everyone's process and just sharing art and talking about the business of art and talking about our ups and downs and all that wonderful stuff. So tonight I would like to introduce you to a friend, artist friend of mine. Her name is Kate Taylor, and thoroughly love her work. I am a fan and I'm just so delighted that she agreed to be on my art chat tonight. I think I saw her now, so I will ask her to join me and you can meet Kate. Yeah, let's see. I'm used to this now. So I just asked her to join, and hopefully she's going to be there in a minute.
Hey, how are you?
Great.
Oh, wow. I'm dark.
You're dark.
Am I?
You're outdoors.
I'm outdoors, but I also dropped my camera, so I've got a crack right in front of my camera lens. So let me hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. I'm going to take my shirt here and see if I can clean the lens a bit. I don't know if that works. Home? I am.
Ah.
Yeah.
You have a pool. How lucky are you?
I do. Yeah. That's my garden.
So jealous.
My garden is better than it's been for years because I actually had time now this year to work on it.
That's really cool. Oh, how nice. You have an escape there, and you have the cottage to escape to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the cottage is great, but it's, 3 hours away. But I have to say, my backyard, I've got so much inspiration and stuff. I'll show you the front part too, because we actually have like a little, yeah. So we're right in the city, so it's small.
You're right downtown. Are you downtown or uptown?
No, I'm Yonge and Lawrence. So
uptown.
Yeah, but it's kind of it's been a really great, I don't know, sanctuary. Like it's been so wonderful this year, and every year I say this is the year I'm going to actually work on my garden because I love gardening, and as you know, I'm so inspired by nature.
Yeah.
But all the summer shows happen in the summer, so you get so busy, and in September I'm like, damn it, another crappy garden year. So this year, with no shows, I got a pretty good garden.
Right? Yeah, wow, it looks lovely. I'm very impressed. I am not a gardener. No. So I buy perennials so they can just sprout when it's ready for them to do so.
Well, and I do a combination because I always buy some perennials, so you've got some really nice anchor pieces.
Yeah.
But I always did lots of room for annuals because one of the things I used to love to do is with Angela Lane go up to Humber Nurseries because they always had really cool and different, interesting things up there. So it allowed me to continue to build, but they're shut down this year. So it's been a little bit different this year. So I've got a lot more things like impatiens, which I normally wouldn't have because they're not that interesting to me, but they were available, so that was good.
Well, you're so busy too. Like I see you with the Riverdale Art Show, and then like from Artist Project, you jump onto the next show right away, and then spring shows take over, and then summer. Like you're a very busy girl, and you have your own business, and you have your own gallery, right? You were teaching. You're supposed to teach this year, right? You were opening this big.
Yeah, I seem to be one of these people that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go in like 100%, right? So, I do probably about between 20 and 25 shows a year.
Yeah.
Typically, and that includes things like, being part of a group show at the Artist Network, to things like Riverdale, to New York and San Diego and Chicago, right? So it's a really nice mix. Like for me, I've realized, especially in this time of COVID, that I so need a deadline. Like I have a hard time getting my shit together when I don't actually have a deadline where I have to work towards it, which is terrible.
Yeah. Oh no, but even like just before Artist Project, you were in Paris for that show there.
Yeah, that was really
Wow.
cool. That was fun. Yeah, I was, that was something that was I do with Eureka Global Arts. So I went to China with them, and then we had the opportunity to be part of this Paris salon in the Grand Palais, which
Oh,
is the original show. When the Impressionists got rejected from the conventional shows, they created their own show.
yeah.
This is that same show. It's been going on for that many years. So that is super cool.
It's such a moment in history, right?
Oh, yeah. And the other thing for me, it's nice because because I've been part of this international artist community that through Eureka, in Paris, I meet these people again, which is like, they're from Sicily and they're from Poland. And it's really a cool way of kind of connecting. So Andrew Sucra, who is actually my guest tomorrow morning on my Talking to Artists. Yeah, I of course first met him in China, which is hilarious because he's like, oh yeah, he's a Toronto artist. I have to go to China to meet him. And we have all these similar shows we've done together. But yeah, it's been kind of fun. It was cool.
He's a darling, right?
Yeah.
He's just
Well, and he was on the landscape competition with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was so cool.
We didn't even know because we were, sealed to secrecy, right? You're not supposed to tell anyone until the showing of the show. I go, Andrew's in it. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I just want to introduce you to everyone who has come on my live chat and just introduce you to everyone out there that you are my friend. Kate
yes,
Taylor.
We're art buddies.
You're an art buddy and someone who inspires me when we're in an art show and things get a little bit quiet. And we just keep each other company.
That's right. Yeah, I'm loud.
Yeah. And just everybody should know that, like Kate is an abstract painter and she has a fine arts degree from Western University. Yeah. And her work is about capturing nature. And I know you love nature just as much as I do. And you capture nature by using your vibrant colors and playing with negative shapes. And what makes you so unique is the use of multiple colors on your palette that you just apply and leave behind and just don't manipulate it. And just by doing so and adding more layers to it, you create some sort of movement. So I think that's your process, but I'm curious to really find out how you even start. Like, what gets you going? Like, what is your inspiration?
So, I've had to do a lot of thinking about that actually, because for sure my inspiration is nature, as probably 98.7% of artists are inspired by nature, right? So it's not that unusual to be inspired by nature.
Right.
But I think that for me, so for me, it actually starts with the wood grain. Like I actually have my panels made for me by day and night, so they have really, really interesting wood grain. And the Baltic birch has these grains that almost look like water ripples already. And so for me, that's already very organic and really beautiful to work with. And so when I stain the wood, and I stain it with this with a liquid acrylic with an airbrush medium, so it's really thin, so it takes probably at least 4 or 5 layers of stain to get the density of color that I want without obliterating the wood grain. And then I can add multiple colors, so I can add some dark greens and some light greens and whatever I'm going to do.
Sure.
And that then, it basically, I look at the wood and I kind of live with that for a little bit, and then that kind of determines what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to cover. So sometimes when it's so beautiful, the organic components of the wood, I don't want to cover those up.
Right.
And so that's kind of where my composition comes from. I mix my colors on the knife, like you were saying, and once the color is down, because it's on the raw wood, I can't pull it back. So I have to really commit to it. And I kind of recognized my major was in photography, which I love the darkroom work. But once photography became digital, for me, I wasn't as interested in it. And I realized through some soul searching that it was because when I create, I like to commit. And I like to commit in a level that I can't pull it back. I can't just test it. I can't just put my toe in the water. I can't control Z it. Right. And so part of that for me is that energy of just being bold and committing, and hopefully it works out, and sometimes you end up with a piece of disaster and then you cover it all up and you start over again. But those are the pieces that never see the light of day, right? And so with the wood grain, it's the same way. Like once the color's down, I can't pull it back. And so I have to kind of commit to it. And so for me, it's actually the creative process is really very critical to me. And that's almost more the art piece for me is the process of kind of letting go and feeling the joy and letting it take its own course, even though it's deliberate in terms of the way that I put my marks down. It's very intuitive in terms of where the colors go and how they mix. And sometimes at the end of the day, I come back and I'm like, no, I don't know if it worked out or not. I have to come back the next day and see, right?
Yeah. And then when you come back, it's like, oh wow, that I was in the zone or something, and then it just
totally
right.
Or sometimes it's like, so not in the zone. That's bad. I'm like, I guess that'll be a color field piece where I cover everything, you know.
But that's part of the process too. Like my students want to get it right always, boom, right? When they're studying, I want them to experiment and not be so hard on themselves in getting it right the first time. But I know it's that thing with human nature. You always want, you strive for perfection, right?
Yeah.
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 But also don't beat yourself up when it doesn't work out.
Well, I totally agree. And I think that, I have this business with Angela Lane called Creative Adventures. And Creative Adventures is about helping non-artists tap into their creativity. And one of the big things I say is if you take nothing else away from this adventure, embrace serendipity. Like embrace the fact that you can't control everything. And that's part of the beauty of creating. And that's really where some of your creative breakthroughs come through. So embrace that. Love that part of it.
For sure. Now, because you just said that, now I'm kind of thinking, because you're such you're such a great. Okay, hang on. You're very creative. Number one.
You.
But then you're involved with so many things. Number two, you are a business person as well. So you're like middle brain.
Mm-hmm.
Consider. Like you're using left and right brain continuously.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's totally true. Like I'm honestly not one of those artists that can spend 8 hours in my studio every day. Like I like the business part of it, and I like the intellectual challenge of trying to figure out, what to do and how to move forward in this environment. And that's been especially true in my role as chair of the Artist Network, where, Riverdale Art Walk is a great event and we know how to manage it, and all of a sudden this year it's canceled, right? So we have to figure out, so what do we do with that, and how do we help artists, a lot of whom they barely have a website, so they certainly haven't sold online and they haven't created a store. So we had to kind of figure all that stuff out, and then of course also worked with Marjolin to do the digital education piece of it. But, I get a real charge out of that. I enjoy that part of it.
That is really so cool though, because like you being the chair of the Artist Network, you support your members thoroughly, and I'm sure Marjolin gave you a very good workshop with the digital world and how to market yourself, right?
Yeah,
because I did take her class or her workshop with the OSA.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
and I think for me too, I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Western 1,000 years ago. And, they taught me how to paint, and they taught me how to do photography, and they taught me how to critique work. Mm-hmm. They didn't teach me at all how to have a business of art. And the reality is that artists are entrepreneurs, and you have to know how to sell your work, and you have to know how to collect your HST and all that kind of stuff. And so it really bothered me a lot that a lot of art schools, and I'm not saying they all do, but a lot of art schools almost set artists up to fail. Like, not only are we not going to teach you the skills, we're also going to say to you and give you the messaging that if you try and sell your work, you're somehow selling out and you're not being true to your inspiration. And I think that's just so detrimental to artists. And it upsets me when I see these super creative people that are so talented, but they won't get out and sell their work and they won't show their work because they've kind of been trained that's not an appropriate thing to do.
Right.
So this is my rant, so I have to just warn you. I rant about this all the time. So I'm actually trying to work with the University of Western Ontario, where I went, to actually incorporate at least one entrepreneur or business course within their Bachelor of Fine Arts, because I just think that it's otherwise you're not truly preparing your students for life in the real world.
Yes.
You're preparing them to do art as a hobby, and then they have to have another job to pay their mortgage, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we should be able to pay our mortgage on our art.
I agree. 100%. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. And again, Marjolaine's just saying that it's all about supporting artists and do they keep making art? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Selling art is good, but also, I mean, like, how do you get it out there? How do you get it out to the public to see it too, right?
Yeah. Well, and I
So,
think that's the other part of it too. So the reason I do 20 shows is because that's how I touch the public, right? So
mhm.
I have a whole bunch of people that see me at different shows, and I mean, the reality is that the business of art is hard work. Like,
Yes,
you know, you
yes,
have to put the hours in. You know that,
indeed.
right?
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
know how much time it is, like following up with commissions and you
Hmm.
know, and doing these shows and preparing for them and marketing them and making sure if you're putting the investment out there to do something like the Riverdale Art Walk or the Artist Project,
Yeah,
that you're actually doing marketing around it to tell as many people as possible, you know, and not doing that show in isolation. And so
right.
some people are just not willing, frankly, to put the work in, you
Yeah,
know,
right. Yeah.
unfortunately. Like, it's kind of, it sounds a bit bitchy, but I think that sometimes that's just the way it is.
And also, like, a lot of people, they have to also realize that this is a full-time job for us, and that
Yes.
we put our blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, just this morning, I said, oh, okay, I was gonna update my website for 2 hours. I ended up doing it the whole day. So Marjolaine will be very happy about that. I'm doing my homework.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah. So, and then when people ask you for, I mean, like, yeah, they feel like it's just a hobby for us. I get really, I don't know if it's disappointed, I would say.
Yeah.
They have to
I,
realize it's serious.
I get disappointed with that. And the other thing that drives me kind of crazy is like, you're so lucky to be creative, especially because I come from, my sister's an artist, as you know, and my grandmother
Oh,
was an artist. So I do come from a creative family.
yeah. Hmm.
And I agree, hopefully, it depends on whether you like
Yeah,
my work or not. Hopefully I've been blessed with a certain amount of creativity.
you are.
But like anything, like you can be, you know, a natural athlete, but you're not getting to the Olympics without a shit ton of work, right? And you don't get to the level as an artist as well, where you're showcasing and you've got gallery representation and you're a consistent artist without a lot of work. And
Hmm.
I think that the natural aptitude with anything helps you. If you're a mathematician, it helps to be naturally good with numbers, and art's no different from that. But that's not the sole reason that as a professional artist you are where you are.
Right, right. Wow, that was like holy guacamole. Cheers.
Sorry, cheers. I know. Obviously, I've had too much wine because I seem to be you got me on a total ranting day today. Sorry about that. And I told myself, don't swear, Kate. Talk slowly and don't swear.
Talk
Those are my two
slowly,
things.
breathe, and things will roll nicely, right? So okay, so let's move away
From my
from the
ranting?
rant. Okay, so you still put resin on all your work, is that right?
No, not on all my work.
Not on all of it. Yeah.
No, the resin is just as for me. It's kind of one of those things that it really kind of super saturates the color and creates kind of a higher level of energy than some
Yeah.
of the non-resin work.
Yeah.
So in some cases, because I already use a lot of color, like I use a lot of strong color, sometimes the resin adds more than what people want in their space. And I do find that the larger the piece, often people choose not to do the resin just because it reflects, it acts like a mirror, right?
Oh
So
yes.
the only pieces that I always resin are my little treasures,
The little
and
one.
they're the 6 inch by 6 inch ones, and
Yeah.
I think they just feel a little bit more precious when they're resined, and
Yeah.
you can wash them off because you know like they get dirty. Yeah.
So now I have some students who will be watching this. So can you talk a little bit about the resin and what safety precautions you would like to advise when they
Sure.
decide to use it, and what product do you use?
So I have to say, first of all, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the resin.
Yeah.
Like I love the look of it, especially when you get that really super saturated colors.
Right.
I don't love actually doing it. You know, by its very nature, in order to have successful resin, you have to be super, super deliberate and super anal about everything. I measure everything. And you have to measure everything.
Yeah.
I time how long I stir it. I time how long I use the propane torch. I time how long it cures. And, you know, and that's the only way that you can get almost perfect resin. And I think my reputation is such that I think my resin is pretty close to perfect.
On. Like there's no
Yeah.
bubbles, no nothing.
And that's kind of, I feel like if I'm going to do something, I want to do it at the best level I can do it in. Right. So although a lot of people have said, well, you could outsource it, I'm like, I could outsource it, but then I have to accept bubbles, and I'm not willing to do that. So I mean, I'm stuck with doing it myself. But it's one of those things that you absolutely have to take some precautions. So I resin in my home studio because I can't manage the level of dust and everything in my art alchemy in my painting studio. So I shut off all the vents. I have weather stripping actually around my door. I always wear a mask. You have to wear a mask, a filtered mask. So after I measure everything and I lay everything out, and then I use a propane torch to get the bubbles out of it. And again, you have to make sure that you get the bubbles out, but you don't scorch it, because by scorching it, you can change the chemical properties of the resin, and it gets all sticky and gross, which has happened. Yeah. You do a little prayer to the resin gods, that nothing else screws up and no weird stuff lands in it. Yeah. Yeah. I use bamboo skewers to kind of pick out all the little pieces of dust and stuff like that. And then I let it sit for at least 24 hours before I move it. Usually I try and let it sit for 3 days, because that's really when it's properly cured. And in that period of time, I keep the room hot. I shut the door, which has got weather stripping on it. I put like a baffle along the bottom so that the resin and the scent smell doesn't get out. Wow. So it's kind of when I have these really hot, humid days, I really can't resin. No. Because it's just too sticky, and then I sweat in the resin and got these little dots on it, and that's not so cool.
Yeah, I saw your picture one time when you were all like covered with your mask, and then you had your glasses on, and then
my dollar store glasses. Oh yeah, totally. So that's the thing too. So I have like my necklace is tied back, my bracelet's tied back because I don't want to get resin on it. I have like a hair net thing almost that I wear, and I have dollar store glasses because they get resin on them, right? So I don't want to ruin them. Right. I tend to resin more when the light is low in my studio, so I can actually look down and I can see the surface area, and I can see if there's any bubbles or pieces of dust or anything that I can kind of pick out and work at it. But that's what I mean with being like super anal about it, which is really not my natural inclination. But I'm also enough of a perfectionist that I want it to look as perfect as I can,
No, well, I think you have to with that form of that's the finishing touch of the painting, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be very attentive to every detail, because it can just totally blow it out, after so many weeks of working on your art, and then it just comes out to be caca. Then...
Well, that's exactly it. And when I used to do my first commissions, I used to always say, I just want to let you know, after you approve this, there is a chance that the resin isn't going to work, and we have to start again. Like, that's the reality of it. I think, knock wood, I've done it enough now. I think I've been resining for about 7 years, so I have a good enough sense now of it, which I haven't really had any resin that hasn't worked out for the last little while. But the other thing I do is, if I'm not resining it, I actually use a satin varnish on the wood, so I still get that saturated color without having to resin, because I work only with a palette knife, so my work is really textural, and so that's part of the beauty of palette knife work. So if you kind of always cover it with resin, you kind of lose some of that texture.
You don't feel it, right? Because it's all nice and smooth. Yeah. So with the what varnish do you use?
I think it's a Liquitex varnish. Yeah. I like Liquitex. That's probably my favorite. Well, I use their Liquitex heavy-bodied paints too, because I like them. I mix my color on the palette knife, so I like them to be able to not slip off. So I like them to be really heavy and thick.
So is Liquitex your preferred acrylic paint?
It probably is generally. I mean, I tend to use, I guess I'm not really that consistent. Like, I really love a lot of the Pebeo metallics. I like the Tri-Art Silver Liquid Mirror, which is a color I use all the time, which I love. Yeah. Crazy expensive, though. And I find often I'll do things like, I like the, the green gold in Golden, as well as the green gold in Liquitex and the green gold in Sennelier, and they're all different colors, right?
I know. They have their secret formula that it's not the same with each manufacturer, right?
Totally. So I quite like the Sennelier paints as well. They're great for traveling because they're in like this, almost like a Tetra Pak. And when I was in France, I discovered the Charvin, which I really love, but I haven't. So I'm like eking out very carefully using my tubes of Charvin paint. I'm just about to run out.
Did you bring some home? Did you bring some home? Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I had Michael as one of my artists guests 2 weeks
Oh yeah.
ago, and yeah, he
He
did
tell you
talk
all about our
Paris.
partying in Paris. Yeah.
What did you bring? Because for him, he rolled his canvas and stretched it there. What
Yeah.
did you bring?
Well, I did that as well. So when I first started
Okay.
working with them, they chose the paintings they wanted. They're like, "Oh, just take it off the stretcher and roll it." I'm like,
Sure.
"I work on wood and
No.
I resin it. Like, I can't do that, right?"
Yeah.
So it actually started me to create this whole basically line on canvas. And normally I don't work on canvas, and
Oh,
so I've been doing almost like a watercolor background for the canvas, so it kind of has that interesting background, and then I do the palette knife work on top of it. So I think for that one I think it was like a 48 by 72 or something canvas piece that I
is
brought
that
with me.
what you brought with you?
Well, and I rolled it.
Fun.
So my sister and I went together. So we actually flew together, and so she was in the show as well.
Yeah.
So we both rolled our paintings, and she actually created this quite brilliant stretcher system. So she actually cut all the stretchers, and she had them like with these cool little discs, and we put them all together in about, like, I don't know, less 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just stapled the things on and stuck them on the wall.
Really?
Yeah, it was cool.
What's that so innovative? Because I thought it'd be hammering and staplering with the wooden thing.
She's good. Yeah, she's good. She works a lot with canvas, so she's way more comfortable. So, and I was really busy, so I'm like, whatever you think, Helen, I trust you, and it was a great solution.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Helen probably next month if she is available.
I'm sure she'd love to.
Yeah, interested to see. I mean, for her to talk about her new series, which is all about her trees, right?
And they're so colorful. I know, I love them.
They're all looking up. It's like almost looking up into the heavens. It's just, it's really cool what she's coming up with.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah. So, which leads me now to your studio.
My art alchemy.
Yeah. So
I love it.
You are with Lisa Hickey.
Yep.
And Karen Taylor, who I also
I'm actually with Karen Jeffries.
Oh, Karen. Who?
Yeah. Karen Jeffries.
Karen Jeffrey. Okay.
And Linda Brown. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Karen Taylor and Lisa Hickey and I are part of Solid Color, which is an abstract art collective. So we show together.
Yes.
And
but
so
that's not your studio, is it?
No.
Oh.
And then I'm also part of Color Shift, which is that group, as well as Mike Smalley and Sans and Lamb. So that we show as a group as well.
And where is that studio located?
So Art Alchemy is located at Eglinton and Laird. And so actually Carolyn and Lady Yarn helped me find the space. And what happened was I have a space at home, but I was finding that I was just, I was missing the connection with other artists. Like, obviously, being an extrovert, I like to talk about things, and I like to talk about what I'm doing, and I like to see what other artists are doing. Yeah. And so the goal was to have Art Alchemy, kind of like my sister, who has Art Alchemy out in Vancouver Island, with a bunch of like-minded artists, where we can learn from each other, we can share techniques, and we can all kind of grow and build together. And that was sort of the goal.
Oh, wow.
So it's been great. The space is great. I love it.
And you can go in now together, right?
Yeah, so we have some pretty strict COVID protocols. Yeah. So we have a WhatsApp group, so we know who's going in when. Mm-hmm. We wear our masks in, and we kind of, clean all the light switches and everything every time we go in. So we're really careful about that. Yeah. It's actually quite unusual to have more than one of us there at a time. Anyway, just because our schedules are different.
So when do you work? Are you a morning person or an evening person?
No, I'm an evening person.
Are you really?
I'm totally night owl. Yeah.
So you could work from now until midnight?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm trying not to. So I'm trying to actually have some structure, because I tend to be, I've been a sort of a serial entrepreneur, so I've always worked a shit ton of hours. Right. So I'm really trying to have my work day be more manageable, like so to end around 6 o'clock. But it takes me a while to get going in the morning. So I get up and I have my tea and I look at Instagram and I get to the studio and I fart around for a bit. And then it's like, oh my God, I have to leave soon. And now I have to work.
Oh. So what is your like a day in the life of Kate Taylor?
It's
like
varied.
A working day, not a vacation day, a working day.
Yeah. Well, my working day is pretty, I will often do my computer work kind of in the morning, just because I always feel like I have to do that stuff first. Okay. And so a lot of that will be following up with clients. I'm a huge believer that, if someone has reached out and is interested in doing something, a commission or something, then I think you need to continue to follow up until they actually say no. Right. And so that has worked well for me in terms of having a lot of commissions. I usually get into the studio probably no earlier than about noon.
Okay.
And I truly only have about 3 or 4 hours worth of work in me, partially because I work flat, so it gets hard on the back.
Right.
I work with panels, large panels, so they're heavy. So physically, so physically it's kind of hard work. Right. But if I get a good 3 or 4 hours in, I'm really happy, and I can do quite a bit in that time frame. So I will typically do, like if I'm doing backgrounds, I'll typically do a whole bunch of different sizes of backgrounds in the same color palette. So I very rarely work on one painting kind of from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. Like that would be pretty unusual.
So you try to do multiple panels all at the same time, right? And then really when people ask you how long did you work on it, can you give them a general idea? Because you're doing multiple panels, right? Yeah,
I can't really. Like I kind of say, you know, if you want something resined, I could produce something in a week, right? Mm. But I really, you know, well, as you know this too, like so much of it is looking and thinking, right? Which is a really, really critical part of the process. And so I find I can take it to I take it to about 75% in terms of, I know the background colors, I know the colors I want in the palette and the basic general shape. And then I kind of have to live with it for a little bit to sort of see what do I want to do next and not take it too far. And because I work with a lot of color and a lot of movement, I'm always very aware of not crossing that line between energy, which is great, and chaos, which is not great. Yeah. So, you know, at the end, I kind of sneak up on it a little bit. That part takes a long time.
Yeah, I like your series of the underwater sort of. It's all like, it's so cool. Honestly.
Thanks. I call them little fish. Well, it's so funny because everyone calls them fish, and I think it's because the background's turquoise, and I love orange and yellow, so they kind of look like goldfish. Like I always see them as flower petals, but I'm probably about the only person that does. Everyone else thinks fish.
I just see them as, you know, floating something in the ocean. So they could be, you know, seaweed or I don't know, like little jellyfish. I don't know.
Well, and that's interesting too, because I find that people see things differently, especially being abstract. They see things differently depending on the geographic location. So when I was in San Diego the first time, at that time there was a lot of conversation about the garbage island in the ocean. And so I had a lot of people say, oh, is that like the garbage ocean? It's like, you know, and I'm like, no, I can see kind of where you get that, but I kind of feel like if I was going to paint the garbage island, which I'm not really inspired to do, I would feel then I would have to do something like raise money to protect against the ocean. And, you know, I mean, I don't think you can kind of do something like that without then having that connected with some sort of an action to improve it, right? Mm-hmm. When I was doing my Tranquility series, which a lot of people see as like wisteria and things like that, when I was in Vancouver Island, people saw that as an aerial view of the islands and the fishing huts. And I realized it's because they take these little float planes, which are low to the ground, and that's what they see.
Wow.
And I just thought that was super cool.
That's one thing I like in abstract too, is that everybody has it really evokes a certain emotion, and it makes people you engage people to talk about, right? So it's kind of nice. And then if they do see you in the show, then they can ask you what was your vision, and it makes it more appealing. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the challenge for my work is it doesn't show that well online. And so for me, it's very important to have those in-person shows because they don't see the subtlety of the wood grain and they don't see the subtlety of the petals. And so it looks very basic. It looks like blue background, a bunch of stuff on it. Maybe it's confetti, maybe it's paper.
Confetti.
You know.
Yeah, no, they have to see it. And I love going to your booth in the shows because I feel like, I don't know, it's really joyful. It really is. When you're in the middle of all your work, it's like, wow, it's so light and airy, and there's so much freedom, there's spontaneity, there's so much emotion you evoke. So
thank you so much for saying that, because joy is exactly really what I want to communicate. Like I want people to have more joy in their life, and I want them to have a piece on their wall that is joyful and brings them joy. And for me, that's a really kind of cool mission to have, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
Bring joy into people's homes. That's cool.
bringing joy, definitely. So for Artist Network, what's next in line? I mean, you had your online show. What
Yeah, so we had the
normally
River.
happens in the summer for Artist Network?
Yeah, so you know, we just acquired a gallery space, right? So we have the Leslie Grove Gallery, which of course then with COVID was shut down.
Yes.
Which now we are open again, which is kind of neat. You know, obviously with limited number of people coming in and out and wearing masks and stuff. So the show we have right now is called Summer Longing. It's a juried show. And so it actually is in the galleries, hanging in the gallery. So you can go to the gallery and you can look at it. Nice. But we also did a virtual tour. So you can actually go online and see the virtual tour and step up to the paintings and really engage in them. Mm-hmm. And then we're doing a virtual opening, I think it's on Thursday night.
This week?
Yeah.
Oh, what time?
I think it's at 7. Yeah, so LeslieGroveGallery.ca is the website, which has all the information. But, you know, I think that's another case where we've really had to move quickly in terms of trying to figure out how to provide opportunities for artists to continue to sell and to promote their work in an environment that is, you know, pretty tough right now.
Yeah, it's pretty tough right now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, so that's Leslie Grove Gallery. So it's going to be a virtual opening. Yeah. And actually going in the gallery, you can come in, you know, crowd control, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and because the gallery is pretty small, right? And we our Walk in the Square is supposed to be in September, so we do that in partnership with Shops at Don Mills, and so at this point, they're optimistic we can still actually have the show, right? Because it's outdoors and we have a lot of flexibility in terms of we'll obviously have to use social distancing protocols, have artists a lot further apart, so. We're still hoping that might actually happen, and we just kind of have to wait to see what the City of Toronto says and how comfortable the Cadillac Fairview is. But that would be really cool. It would be so great to actually be able to do an outdoor show again.
Yeah. Are you a member of the Society of Canadian Artists?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Great, because we were planning to have the International Open at the Todd Morton this August. It's at the Paper Mill Gallery.
That's right. Yeah, I've shown there before. That's a cool space.
Yeah, but they decided that it won't open. They're not open
at
all.
I know. Like, I'm supposed to be part of the Bayview art tour, and they decided to make that virtual. I'm part of the North Toronto group of artists, which actually we are doing like almost like a studio tour where we'll have our tents set up in our driveways and stuff, which will be kind of cool. That's great. And I'm also going to try and do an art alchemy tiny little show. So with the current alchemists we have and some of our ex-alchemists like Sherry Hart and Mark Leberzon, and just do a kind of like something in the parking lot for a day, because again we can easily manage the social distancing on that.
Oh yeah, so. For sure. It's kind of neat because with COVID we have now broken out of what was normal, and we have learned to adapt after all the trying to understand what it's all about. And I think I don't know. I find that most of the artists that I've been talking to have become more productive in a different way, or have found a different route, or because the pressure was off, they're creating something totally different. Do you find that?
I think they are now. Like, I think a lot of artists, when it was first shut down, like one of the interesting things is, you know, as chair, one of the things I used to hear all the time is like, I don't want to do the business of art. I just want to spend time in my studio and paint. That's all I want to do. Yeah. And then COVID hit, and it's like, okay, now that's all you can do, right?
I guess I have to update my website.
Yeah. But people they kind of didn't want to because they weren't in the mental space to do that, right? So it's one thing to want to do something. It's another thing to have it forced on you. And I think a lot of artists were really struggling with that feeling of there's so much chaos and uncertainty in the world, and I don't know what to do. It's really hard to feel joyful and happy and creative in that kind of mind space. Right. So I think that a lot of artists lost a couple of months where it took them some time to kind of work through that. Right. And I was personally grateful that I had so much to keep my mind busy, like in terms of trying to, you know, navigate the Artist Network and the Riverdale Art Walk and all of those kind of things. Yeah. So, you know, I think now artists are getting back to it because it's like, like being an artist is there's an internal compulsion to create. Like, you can only not do that for a while, right? Right. And then you just need to.
You just need to. It's a part of being an artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it like for me personally, it took me about 2 weeks to even go down in the studio and paint. Like the first, like when we had that first shutdown in March, it was
Mm-hmm.
very hard for me to create. And then I
Yeah.
just started creating again in April. And I'm like, wow, I kind of like what I'm doing here. Let me do some more of that.
Yeah, like sometimes there's a break, right? Well, and I hadn't created because I was really sick with pneumonia for the beginning of the
Oh,
year.
that's
So
right.
by the time I went to Paris, I was
Poor
only actually
girl.
just starting to recover, and then I did the artist project, and everything shut down, right?
Right,
So
right.
by the time I got back to it, I'm like, holy, I haven't really painted for like months. Maybe I've forgotten how. I don't even know if I can paint anymore.
I know.
I'm like,
I know.
my days as an artist are over.
No, no, no. It would never happen. No, I don't think so. I think it's in our DNA, right? It's
Yeah.
in our DNA. So now, I mean, like I know people will be watching my IGTV, and some of them are just starting out to be an artist, or I don't know, like they're just incoming. So,
Yeah.
what would you give as an advice to those who are just, testing the waters and seeing if it's for them?
I mean, and this is not because I'm chair. I really think that
Join the Artist Network.
join the Artist Network.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
one of the reasons I've been chair for so many years
yeah.
is because I just feel so strongly that it's such an amazing organization that not only helps emerging artists to figure out, like when you're starting too, you don't have a necessary body of work. So you can kind of put your work into a juried show and see what the reaction is. There's a lot of kind of mentoring and stuff. I think it's important to become part of the arts community because a lot of times people go to school outside of Toronto, they move back to Toronto and they're like, I'm not tapped into the community. And I think we're so blessed in Toronto. We have such an incredibly supportive artist community, which I think is just wonderful. And I think that emerging artists need help tapping into that. We have our education sessions on everything from how to price your work, how to do an outdoor show, how to talk to galleries, how to ship your work, the digital marketing, all that stuff, which, really for a membership fee of, I think it's $150 a year, I mean, you get a tremendous amount of value and support. And, we do everything from when we do our outdoor shows, which is usually Riverdale, we do a really intensive orientation, which is like, how do you price your work? How to talk about your work? Are you going to do commissions? How do you set up your e-commerce site? All that kind of stuff. So
Wow, that's
I think
amazing.
it's an incredible organization, I think. Yeah.
How long has this show been, in this artist network been going on?
So I think we just celebrated, I think, our 22nd year of Riverdale Art Walk. So it's been around for a long time, and it's definitely morphed. I think since I've been chair, because I have a business background as well,
Right.
like my mandate really was to make it less grassroots and larger so we can actually touch more artists. So that COVID has been really great in some ways for us because it allowed us to kind of really start to do some of these education sessions and online networking digitally. So
Yeah.
we don't have to be so reliant on people living within the space, within the gallery space, right? So,
Yeah.
we have members that are all across Ontario and Quebec and
Yeah.
BC, and I think that's amazing.
I
You
did
know.
belong once,
Hmm?
but I did belong once to the artist network, but I haven't. Sorry.
No, I mean, and it's not for everybody. Like they say, there's a lot of, I'm part of North Toronto group of artists and we get together and do stuff. I think Don Valley does, they get together and they do paint nights. And, I like in terms of artists showing their skills and stuff, I don't mean to demean that as saying it's a paint night. So I think part of it is trying to figure out what works for you and what do you want from it. But I think that it's a good way to start because it's an organization that has over 200 members. So there's enough people. You're going to find your people, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. Wonderful, wonderful advice. Now we're almost time, so I just wanted to leave it with a nice close.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. What are the three things that you would consider important to be successful as an artist?
I think you have to be really committed to your craft. You have to have confidence in what you're doing because especially as an abstract artist, there's a lot of people that don't like it. They never will. You hear shitty stuff. You have to just accept that and trying to have the confidence in yourself that you're doing something that's true to you. I think you have to you have to embrace the business of art, and you have to work hard at that part of it. And I think that you need to understand that when people buy a piece of your art, they're also buying a piece of you. And so your personality and your ability to kind of connect to people is really important in, it's kind of like the aura of the artist and the aura of the painting, I think, are all the sort of the same thing. And I think that, you know, when you're going to an outdoor show, your job is to help people take your work home. I don't think you can sell something to people that they don't love your work, but I do think that you can help them find a piece that's right for them and feel a really emotional connection. And I mean, is there anything better than someone who buys a piece of your art that's going to be in their family for the next 50 years? Like, that's just so cool, right?
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Was that 3 things or that more? I don't remember how many things that was.
I think 3. That was actually 3 things. I have to listen to this talk again, and it's going to be on replay.
Number 1 is be confident. Number 2 is put the work in, and number 3 is extend your brand. Those are going to be 3.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, with that, I would like to close our Instagram live tonight. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been so great.
So kind to joining me tonight. I truly had so much fun getting to know you more and understanding your process and yeah, just being you. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Well, and I look forward to having you as my guest on my Talking to Artist, which is every Wednesday morning at 11.
I know you're in the morning, and it's really strange.
Well,
because you said you're a night person.
I am, but so the reason I have it in the morning is because I have it at night. I'll be thinking about it all day, and I'll get nothing done. Whereas at least it's like I get it out of the way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kate. You have a good week ahead. I will tune in on your Instagram tomorrow.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Marissa. It's been fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.